Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm giving you guys my spoiler-free review for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. If you guys are new to my channel, if you haven't already seen my reviews, I do the good, the bad, and then give you guys my final take, except in this review for James Gunn's Suicide Squad. I'm going to be giving you guys my top 5 characters as well. And then stay tuned on the channel because tomorrow I'm going to be giving you guys all of my DCEU movie rankings, which I haven't done since Wonder Woman 1984. So it'll include Zack Snyder's Justice League and The Suicide Squad. Before we get into this video, if you guys are new in here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you don't miss any time I up a new video or I go live. Both are wasting any more time. Let's get into it. I'm going to start off with the good of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. And probably my favorite thing about this movie is the pacing, besides the character development, of course, which is the pacing. I think the pacing of this movie is super well done. There's multiple chapters. Each chapter is a different length. It's not like a chapter per act. It's nothing along those lines. It's done super uniquely. And what I mean by that is that there's some chapters that take place, and within those chapters, there's flashbacks to a different team or a different set of characters within that chapter, within that mission. For example, there's the mission to go into the big tower that you guys see in the trailer where Starro is being held. So within that one section, there's two different teams because it's basically just a mission. And so two teams go off. It's all part of one main team, obviously. But one team goes and does something crazy, something insane happens. There's some crazy character development, or there's some just crazy revelation that happens, and then after that, right before something crazy happens, we pan over to another team, and then at the end of that chapter, everything culminates and we see some sort of resolution. And my favorite one was definitely the resolution after, not they defeated Starro, but before that, right? Kind of like the lead up to the final battle. But moving on, my actual favorite thing about this movie was definitely the character development. I'm gonna give you guys my top 5 characters of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad later in this video, but the character development overall was awesome. My favorite character development, I would have to say, is Peacemaker. I don't think it's Harley Quinn because we've already seen so much of Harley Quinn before. We've seen so much of Harley Quinn's story be told, but I will say Peacemaker's story in this movie is absolutely insane. There's such a crazy and ridiculous arc that I didn't see coming. I had some feeling about it, and I felt like I predicted some of the stuff that would happen in Peacemaker's storyline, but I didn't expect it to go this hard. I didn't expect me to love this character so much. And the post-credit scene sets up the Peacemaker show perfectly. I'm so hyped for this show, especially after this movie and how they utilize the Peacemaker character. Also, Harley Quinn in this movie was way bigger of a character than I thought she would be. I thought this movie would obviously focus on Bloodsport, which it does. It focuses on Bloodsport just enough. But I will say that Harley Quinn is one surprise character in this movie, at least for me, because I wasn't going in expecting so much Harley Quinn here and there. This movie does Harley Quinn justice, in my opinion. Again, Birds of Prey is it's a fine movie, but this movie really utilizes Harley Quinn as Harley Quinn. Margot Robbie steals the show with her performance, and overall, I had such a blast with Harley Quinn's character. But moving on, probably one of the most anticipated parts of this movie that I had, and you guys know I had little to no expectations. If you guys have heard me on my podcast, Third Thoughts, I was talking with Brentley. We were talking about who we think is going to die in this movie. I'm not going to spoil any kills in this review because it is spoiler free, but I thought the kills overall were done so well. The kills in the beginning of the movie, the middle of the movie really lacks in kills, but I think they really redeemed themselves in the final act of this movie, or I guess the final 2 or 3 chapters, you could say, because this movie again doesn't even feel like it has acts. It just feels like the chapters are things in itself, and I think that's what I really enjoy about it. The kills, like I said before, not too existent in the middle act of this movie, but the first act is an absolute slaughterhouse. In the final act, the kills are more spread out, they're more paced apart, and I can acknowledge that because, and I sorry, not acknowledge, but I agree with what they did there, because those were more important characters that were dying off. The first 1,000 whatever kills, not 1,000, but the first a bunch of kills that we had, those were all really non-important characters. They were marketed, but they weren't super important. We didn't really care about them. But obviously, as you get towards the end of the movie, you have more of a redemption arc. You have more of an arc for these characters overall, and you start to care for them. The one character that I felt like could not die was Harley Quinn. I know that Margot Robbie said that she doesn't want to play Harley Quinn for a while now, just because she wants to kind of step away from superhero movies. But I just felt like Harley Quinn is too big of an IP to throw away. I still felt like Bloodsport had a good chance of dying. Peacemaker had a good chance of dying. I felt like any character that wasn't Harley Quinn had a really high chance of dying. dying. I was right with almost all of them. I missed on like one or two, but honestly, I would say I went pretty good when it comes to my record of who I thought was gonna die. But that's all I want to talk about for kills, because I don't want to accidentally spoil something. Moving on, I want to talk about the action. The action in this movie was absolutely awesome. It was so much fun. It was gore galore. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what I'm going with. It was gore galore. This movie goes all in on the blood. James Gunn does not shy away from the rated R rating. This movie fully embraces it. From the first second to the final second of this movie embraces blood, and I love it. I'm definitely here for it. But moving on, I want to kind of talk about something that's kind of an overall thing. Another good thing about this movie was definitely the story. I thought the story of this movie was super well done. I have like one nitpick of it, and I just have to mention it, which I'll mention in the bad, but I have to mention it since I'm highly praising this movie anyway. Overall, I thought the story was really great. It did all of the characters justice, and overall, I think the story lended itself to be able to explore these characters, which I really did like. There's a lot of superhero movies nowadays that don't focus on the right things. They try to focus on one hero, but obviously this is a group movie, and I think when it comes to character development, when we're looking at a story overall, I think the Suicide Squad does it better than either of the Guardians movies, just because I feel like we have a fleshed out background of each of these heroes, as well as a care for each of them, and their story moves the main story forward, which I can really appreciate. Overall, that's basically all I have to say for the good of this movie. That's going to be like 90% of this video, but quickly I want to move on to the bad. This is going to be very short, and both of these things are nitpicks. These are the most nitpicky things I could say about this movie, because I don't have much else bad to say. The first bad thing, and the biggest bad thing that stood out to me, was the villain. The villain is Starro, but at the same time, it's this general guy from like a foreign country that's using Starro as a weapon, and so that general character was really weak to me. There was a big chunk of the movie, not a big chunk, it was like, I would say like 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, where Harley Quinn is very close to the leader of the Empire country place, and that was the only time I really felt connected with the villain, or I felt like the villain had a purpose. Other than that, it just felt like a ploy to get to Starro. Other than that Harley Quinn interaction and that entire part of the movie, which is one of my favorite parts of the movie, by the way, other than that interaction with Harley Quinn and the Prince dude person thing, I didn't really care for the villain, the conquistador dude. I'm gonna be honest, those people just feel like ploys, like I said before. But moving on, the next bad thing and the final bad thing is probably just King Shark. I felt like they tried too hard to make him like a Groot character, just like a dumb guy. I think this movie, it worked a little more just because like you could be bloody and he could like tear people apart, eat people, and that was like the joke. But overall, I didn't really have a fun time with that character. It was a cool character, but I didn't really laugh. It was like a hand, like it's a cool joke, but it's not really that funny. Before I give you guys my final take for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, I want to go over my top 5 characters. Starting off at number 5 is going to be Rick Flag. I think Rick Flag was a great character. I love the way they used him in this movie. I love the way they set up Rick Flag and Harley Quinn's characters in the very beginning of the movie, and then how they transition to the middle part of the movie, and then all this stuff. I don't want to go into too many details because I'm going to spoil it, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. Rick Flag's a great character. At number 4 is actually going to be Ratcatcher. I think Ratcatcher was a great character, very sympathetic towards her character. I love her backstory. I love the way that they played out her backstory and how they connected it to Bloodsport. Speaking of Bloodsport, my number 3 character is Bloodsport. I love the way they integrated his daughter into the story. Definitely felt like it was a little bit forced because it just felt like they're moving so fast into the movie. But other than that, I really have no complaints about Bloodsport's character. I love all of his gadgets and stuff. The CGI was great when it comes to his guns, all of his mechanics. They were all super well done. Moving on to my second favorite character is actually going to be Peacemaker. Like I mentioned before, I have so much praise for Peacemaker, and this movie really made me excited for the Peacemaker show that's coming later, I think this year, or I think January 2022 on HBO Max. James Gunn wrote that, and I think is editing that as well. Peacemaker, the show, has the potential to be so great, and I think this movie sets him up so perfectly. I think that this movie really transforms an arc of a character that we never met before so quickly, but also so well. It doesn't feel like they've actually forced his character to do things. It feels like it all happens naturally, and that's kind of what I like so much about it. But moving on to my number 1 character in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is going to be Harley Quinn. Like I mentioned before, that 15 to 20 minute scene early in the movie with her and the Prince dude, I think that's an absolutely phenomenal sequence. I think that story in itself is so great, but overall her character is so funny. She had so much to the team, and I think Margot Robbie's one of the best comic book movie actor/actress castings for a role. But yeah, guys, those are my top 5 characters of James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Now to give you guys my final take. Overall, I thought this movie was a blast. I think James Gunn's delivered one of the best superhero movies of all time. Personally, it's in my top 10 superhero movies of all time right now. It could honestly go up to top 5. I think time will tell as I rewatch it. Overall, this movie I think was brilliant. I think it had phenomenal kills. I thought the character development was off the charts, especially for the time that the movie was concise to. I think the pacing was also great with the chapters. And overall, this movie really blew my mind. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10 with potential to go up to a 9.5 out of 10 on a second rewatch. But yeah, guys, that's it for this video. If you guys have already seen James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.